Everybody, this is Props in the Spotlight. I am your host, Dan Goodwin. This is an exciting night tonight with some exciting information for you. Just stand by here for a moment. We are live on Facebook as well, and we are on YouTube. And welcome. We got, if you've read the title, you know we got something very interesting to share with you all tonight. So while we're waiting on folks to get on, just briefly, let me get on my page over here, and we will make sure that everybody's here, and we're going to share this page over on the other page soon as I find it here. Okay, let's get rid of those. Okay, where's there it is right there. Okay. All right, I'll get her shared over here. Let's get that turned, and let's bring that one back over. There we go. I got two screens here at the same time. All right, so that's coming up. I came on about 8:15 Central Time. Told everybody not sure I was going to make it back in time, so I said might be 9:30, but we got on early. So I asked everybody's opinion. Should I wait till tomorrow night? And I think a couple of people said that it might be better, but most everybody kind of wanted to hear what I had to say tonight and not wait. So we are here, and you are here. So let's do it, okay? We got. I'm still waiting on the page to come up over here. I don't know what the holdup is. Um, Probably there we go. All right, so let me hit the share button here. And Steve and Marie in Texas are here. Tiffany Adams is here. Joy from Alabama. I don't know why I say Alabama. It's just the way they say it. So okay, so let's hit the share button here. That puts it over on the other page. Outstanding. Good. Okay, got some interesting developments to share with everybody tonight. As I said the other day, the last time we was on, I told everybody that when I mentioned November 13th, I told everybody that was the date that if I had to pick a date for this year, that would be my date. And he didn't come on that day, so but that's okay. I went about my day. I was busy. I didn't change in my plans. I made a little trip to Louisville that day because that's how you got to live. You don't know. You can't be sure of anything. Okay, so and that's the way you need to be living. He could come tonight and shock us all, right? You just can't know. Okay, so but when I was coming up with my numbers, and by the way, November 13th was a very, very good day for the rapture. It didn't happen. It wasn't the day that God had chosen. But it was. Everything fit very nicely there for that date. But when I set that, and of course I figure that out with my 2020, 2520 stuff, I go the Day of Atonement in the future and I work back 2,520 days, and it always comes to a new moon in the fall. Well, what do you do with that? I mean, isn't that interesting? I mean, what should you do? Just ignore that? I don't think so. So anyway, I while I was computing that, something else came to me. This thing about 2030. See, 2030 would have been the end of the tribulation, and you know what 2030 is all about, right? The global agenda 2030, all the global three-letter organizations, the World Economic Forum, I mean, all the globalists have a goal of coming to fulfillment, their utopia by 2030. And if that's true, and it is, that isn't that an interesting date? And we looked at that as possibly being the end, Battle of Armageddon. The whole world comes together to shake their fist at God. But something else came to my mind as I was preparing this couple months ago, actually. a couple months ago, as I was preparing for the 25/20 thing, November 13th, all that, something else kept coming to me as well, but I didn't share it with anybody because I wanted to get past the November 13th first, because that was a good day. And again, I'm not a date setter. I have never set a date for the rapture. I have given you my first choice for a day every year for several times now. I can give you that date anytime in the future. I can find that date for you. It's very easy. And in fact, Miss Alana, who's probably on here tonight, she can do it too. She knows how to do it. Yeah, it's very simple, and has to do with finding Day of Atonement in the future, working back 2,520 days, and it always comes to October or November on a new moon on the calendar. Always, every single time. That's very interesting. So, but as I was preparing this a couple months ago, I also had this another thought. What if 2030 is not the end of this thing, but what if 2030 is the middle of the tribulation? And so I hadn't done a lot of homework on it, but I had it up here and I was thinking about it, and it made more sense actually for 2030 being the middle with all the globalists. That makes more sense than it being at the end, and here's why. When you realize what takes place at the middle of the tribulation, you'll understand what takes place at the middle of the tribulation. First of all, the um, the um, the Antichrist enters the temple. Before he does, he right at the middle of the tribulation. Now he's going to kill the two witnesses, Moses and Elijah. How do we know it's Moses and Elijah? Matthew 17 tells us who they are. The Transfiguration story, and I've shared that before. We won't get into that tonight. That's who they are. The law and the prophets, preaching to Israel only in Jerusalem. The 144,000 Jewish men are there because they have to be there for unleavened bread, and that's the law. Every Jewish man, 18 or older, has to, if they have the temple, has to be in Jerusalem on that day. And there'll be 144,000 of them there. And the two witnesses are killed. The Bible says the whole world rejoices, gives gifts one to another. I mean, they're excited that the last two Bible thumpers are dead, and they leave them in the streets so everybody can gloat over them and see them, and probably pour their beer on them, and all that. And I'm serious about that. They leave them in their bodies in the streets so that people can spit upon them and gloat. And but 3.5 days later, the Bible says they get up on their feet and they ascend into the heavens. And I believe that will be on the Feast of First Fruits. That's important. And when the Jews see that, the 144,000 Jews, now this is Revelation 11, and if I had an hour to sit down with you with the Bible, I could show you all this and prove it to you. Revelation 11:13, right at the middle of the tribulation, is when the Jews, the Bible says, the remnant gave glory to the God of heaven. The remnant's going to be those Jews, the 144,000. They're going to become believers, and they're going to get saved. They're going to trust in the Messiah. Inside the temple, the Antichrist is there, and he's going to hear the commotion outside, the yelling and the glorifying, I'm ad-libbing here, but I picture him asking one of his aides, "What's going on outside?" And one of them's going to come and say, "Sir, you're not going to believe this, but those two men that you killed, those two the Bible thumpers, got up on their feet and they ascended up into the sky, and those Jews have gone crazy. They're worshiping Jesus." And the Antichrist, who may be Mr. Obama himself, is going to clench his fist like that. And he's going to say, "I'll kill them all. I'll kill every one of them." And that's Matthew 24. The abomination takes place. That's when in the midst of the week, he's going to make the decision to kill all the Jews. The Jews never get a break. They've been hated since Christ was crucified, and they're in some cases even before that. But see, they brought the Messiah into the world. They also gave us the Holy Scriptures. The very oracles of God were given to them, and so they're hated. Satan hates them. So Satan is going to try to destroy every one of them. That's why Matthew 24 says, "Woe unto her who was with child in those days." What days? The middle of the tribulation. What's the middle of the tribulation called in the Bible? A lot of preachers get this wrong. A lot of you prophecy guys get this wrong. The uh, the the time of Jacob's trouble is not the entire tribulation. It's the second half, when the two witnesses ascend back to heaven and the Jews become believers. That's the time of Jacob's trouble. They have to run for their lives. Nothing new about that, right? And that's why it says, "Woe unto her who is with child in those days." Why? Because it's hard to run if you got a little toddler. Even worse if you got a little toddler in your womb, right? If you're pregnant, and whichever, doesn't matter. It's hard to run. It says if you're on the rooftop, don't go back in the house. Run for your life. If you're in the field, don't go back to get anything. Run for your life. You got moments to get out of Dodge. That's right at the middle of the tribulation. What else goes on at the middle of the tribulation? The mark of the beast system. Revelation 13, which, by the way, is just about ready now. And we could be under a digital system before the rapture. There's nothing that says we can't. In fact, it is my guess that we will be before the rapture. Because at the middle of the tribulation, when the determination is made or the decree is made that everyone has to have his mark in their right hand or in their forehead, that's allegiance to him. And that's how you get into the system of financial buying and selling. You've got to be a follower of the Antichrist. So all this happens right at the middle, and many more things happen at the middle. Satan loses access to heaven. He's booted out. That's Revelation 9:1. I saw a star fall from heaven. That's not a literal star. That's Satan. And he has a key in his hand. And he's going to be cast down to the earth. And see, right now he has access to the third heaven, but he's going to lose that. And that's when it says in Revelation 12, I think it is, he knoweth he hath but a short time. And okay, let me. I guess I probably can't do that. I don't know. I better not try. So I'm trying to see some of the comments here. All right, Esther is asking, Brother Dan, for those who don't get saved, lost it. All right, what does she say? For those who don't get saved, can they get saved before they get judged before God? No, not after the not after. You can't go to the great white throne and then trust Christ. It's too late. You have to make that decision while you're still in the body, while you're still spirit, soul, and body. You got your, that's so during the tribulation, nobody gets saved the first half. I prove that in some of my writings. Nobody saved the first half. The first people saved, the Bible tells us who they are. Revelation 14, 1 through 4. The 144,000 are the first fruits unto God. They are the first people saved during the tribulation, and I can prove to you exactly when they get saved. It's right at the middle of the tribulation. That means everyone who dies the first half goes to hell. Now, you think about that as you decide not to witness to your loved ones anymore because you don't want to offend them. You've bought into this left behind thing that you can leave things behind. They'll get saved after we're taken out of here. Then they'll understand. No, strong delusion is coming. In fact, it's already beginning. Strong delusion's coming. They'll not obey the truth, but they'll believe the lie. And anyone that's rejected the Messiah before the rapture will not have another chance. He'll be blinded to that. Hey, Levi Talks. Are you the 10-year-old boy that we heard about last time? I can't remember. Um, Levi Talks. Are you the young man that we talked with last time? Let's see. Why do people name names because they don't like them? That's not right. I don't know. I don't know what you mean by naming names. Maybe I missed something. Um, if you're talking, I don't know if you're talking about me, Edwina. I don't know if you're talking about me naming names for the Antichrist. It has nothing to do with me liking or not liking him. But I'm not sure you were talking to me. Um, anyway, I have biblical reasons why I chose Mr. Obama way back in 2014. I've written about it. It had nothing to do with whether I like him or not. But I'm not sure you were talking about me. May have been something. I probably missed something because I'm scrolling through these now. Um, okay, so are you still with me? Middle of the tribulation, all this stuff happens. Doesn't that sound like possibly the fulfillment of the 2030 agenda? The mark of the beast comes into play, which means the financial system is all digitized and all buying and selling has to go through a main system under the control of somebody. Um, and the world is under one leader, the Antichrist, and a one world religious system. Um, Interesting. Huh? Does that sound a little bit like the 2030 agenda that we read about and the great reset that's coming? That great reset could come before the rapture, or it could come at the rapture, or it could come at the middle of the tribulation. The great reset is most likely part of the 2030 agenda. And the great reset, I believe, is going to forgive all debt. I believe all debt's going to be wiped clean. There's no way for nations and peoples to pay off this debt. America will never pay their debt. 32 trillion right now and rising. They say in 100 days, I heard this morning, 100 days from now, we will be 2 trillion more dollars in debt. Right now, all that we're paying is interest. We are not paying on the principal of our debt. We are paying interest. We're like teenagers. The government is like a bunch of teenagers with credit cards. They have no idea what they've done. And we'll never fix this. They'll never, the forgiveness of debt, I believe, is going to be part of the system to get people in it. Who's not, by the way, who won't sign up for that? My goodness, people promised to vote for Obama because he was going to give them a cell phone. People will sell their own soul for a cell phone. And what do you think people will do when the carrot of debt forgiveness is waved in front of them? You want your car payment paid, your college bill, your house bill. You're about ready to go under. We'll clear all that debt. You'll owe nothing, and you'll be happy. And you'll own nothing, and you'll be happy. That's Charles Schwab, World Economic Forum. The Great Reset is probably built into the 2030 thing and leads right into the mark of the beast and the one world financial system and the one world leader and all that. The one world leader gets crowned in Revelation 6 right after the rapture. But the something happens with him at the middle of the tribulation. He gets more power at the middle. Okay, so I got some dates for you here. I wrote some stuff down. And again, I'm just speculating here. I don't know. The rapture could be tonight at midnight. Who knows? Um, but God's a God of order, isn't he? Those 7 feasts, you can't discount those 7 feasts. If you understand those 7 feasts, then you understand um, the significance of the final 3. Feast of Trumpets. I mean, he fulfilled the first four right to the day, right to the moment. Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, Pentecost, all fulfilled right to the very day. There are three left. Their fall feast. The next one on the calendar is a new moon in the fall, Feast of Trumpets. The Jews call it Rosh Hashanah, head of the year. It's their New Year's. And it's believed that that's the same day that creation happened in Genesis chapter 1. And I personally believe that that is true. And that is the blowing of trumpets. That has the understanding, or the typology there fits perfectly with the rapture. Behold, we shall not all sleep, but we shall be changed in a moment. The twinkling of an eye, the trump of God shall sound. So the trump of God shall sound, the dead in Christ shall rise first, and we which shall alive remain shall be caught up. So shall we ever be with the Lord. Trumpets. Feast of Trumpets seems to fit the bill for the rapture. Revelation 4:1 is the rapture, told in advance in the book of Revelation, right after the church age, right after the final age of the Laodiceans that we're living in right now. The last breaths of God's church right now is breathing, but the church is sick and it's ill and it's faltering and it's on its last breath. I mean, they're trying to turn the fans on and keep it alive in there. And he's going to come. You turn the page, Revelation 4:1. After this. After what? That means you write an arrow up to what was just said. Revelation 3:2 and 3, the seven churches. The final church, the Laodiceans. You put an arrow up there. Verse 1 of chapter 4 is speaking about after something. After what? After the church age. After this, a door was opened in heaven. I heard a voice as it was of a trumpet saying, "Come up hither." Hey, does "come up hither" seem to have the same meaning as caught up? Of course it does. Revelation 4:1 is the rapture. Okay? And in chapter 4, you see what John sees in heaven when his mind is taken there. He sees the seven sealed book in the hand of he that sitteth on the throne. He sees the Lamb in chapter 5 is going to come and take the book and open the first seal and begin the redeeming of the planet and the dealing with Israel, the tribulation. And okay, so if that's true, let me. I did some math here. I wanted to find out how 2030 fits in the calendar here with a beginning and an end. In other words, inside the 2520, I wanted to find if I could get 2030 to fit here. And look what I found. What I found was a new moon. Now, you're not going to like this. A new moon in November 8th or 9th, is the new moon in 2026. That's 3 years from right now. 3 years from right now is a new moon in the fall in November. No, the 8th and the 9th. And from that date to the Day of Atonement, 7 years later, but not 7 years exactly, but 2,520 days, guess what you get? You get October the 2nd, 2033, as the second coming of Christ at the end of the 2520, the tribulation period. All right. It's not what you want to hear, right? 3 more years. We don't want to be, hey, what's 3 years? It's going to fly by like nothing. But again, he could come tonight. It hinges on this. Are you listening? It hinges on this. What year did Jesus die on the cross? Because we believe he died on the cross at the end of the Old Testament. The veil is going to be rent in two, signifying the new covenant. And the church age is going to last 2,000 years. 4,000 years before the cross, 2,000 years after the cross, and So if he died in 30 AD, and this is what we talked about, a week or two ago, remember? If he died in 30 AD, the 2,000 year mark is 2030, the date that we're talking about. All right. Cynthia says, I'm confused. How can 2030 be the middle when we are still here in 2023? So the rapture would have to take place. I'm explaining that, Cynthia. So listen, if the rapture happens in 2033, in November, 3 years from right now, the second coming would be 2,520 days after that on the Day of Atonement. And it fits like a glove. It fits every year. I can show you this any year you want to look at. I can show you this 25-20 timeline from a new moon in October or November to the Day of Atonement 2,520 days later. Basically 7 years, but it's not 7 years as we count time. These are sabbatical cycles. So what we get is 2520 from November 2026 to October 2033. That's the 2520. Now, where does 2030 fit? 2030 fits right at the exact middle of that timeline. Here's the 1200. So, how many days in each half of the tribulation? 1260. Remember, it's 42 months in the first half, 42 months in the second half. Those months are 30-day months, and you do the math, but it also says in the Bible, it's called 1260 days. So it comes up to 2,520 total, two halves of 1260 each. The ministry of the two witnesses, the Bible tells us their ministry is 1,260 days, not 1,258 days, not 1,250, 1,260. I believe their ministry does not end at their death when they're left dead on the streets of Jerusalem. I believe their ministry ends when they get up and they ascend back into heaven. I believe that's the 1260th day. Here's what I found for you. In the year 2030, I found Passover. That's the key. You got to find Passover because that's going to be right at the midpoint, right? In other words, 3.5 years from Feast of Trumpets is going to be Passover. So 3.5 years from that new moon in November is going to be April the 17th or 18th, somewhere in there. It's let's see here. In fact, it's a Wednesday, the same day Jesus died. I think it's the 17th of April. A Wednesday is Passover. It's the full moon. It's Passover in the year 2030. You can find that for yourself. You can Google that. You can go to the Jewish calendars. You can find Passover anytime in the future you want to find it. So what I found here was April 21st. So in other words, I went to Day of Atonement on October 2nd, 2033, and I did the math. 1,260 days, I backed up 1,260 days. That puts us at the middle of the tribulation, right? Are you with me? You can do it either way. You can go with the rapture date, November 8th, 2026, add 1,260 days, you'll get the middle. Or you can go to the end, October 2nd, 2033, Day of Atonement. Christ comes on a white horse. Back up 1,260 days. What do you get? The same day, the middle. What is that date? It's the 1,260 mark. It's right at the middle of the tribulation. Do you know what it is? Anybody want to know? April 21st, 2030. Now, Passover is on the 17th. So you know what that does? That gives you 3.5 days for them two men to lie dead in the streets, killed on Passover. 3.5 days later is what? Up from the grave they arose on the first day of the week. They're the Feast of First Fruits. They're going to rise from the dead the same day Jesus rose from the dead. Now, I've known this for years, and I have showed people this for years. But this doesn't always fit like this, but it fits now. So the 1,260 day mark, the middle of the tribulation, is not Passover, it's Feast of First Fruits. It's 4 days after, or it's a few days after Passover. 3.5 days in this case. Okay? Feast of First Fruits is always the first day of the week after Passover. So if Passover is on a Wednesday, it's Saturday night at 6 p.m., Sunday. That's what, all right? So isn't that interesting? And I've got more, but I can't share everything with you tonight. So in other words, if 2030 is the middle of the tribulation, that would mean, or 20, that would mean that not 2030, yeah, 2030. That would mean the rapture would have to happen November of 2026, 3 years from right now. Okay, almost, because November 8th we've already passed that. So almost exactly 3 years from now, if this scenario, if 2030 is the middle. Now, here's the crux to this whole thing. As I said a moment ago, when did Jesus die on the cross? If he died in 2030, this doesn't seem to fit because 30. If he died in 30 AD, it would seem like if the calendars are right, and that's a big if the calendars are right, and this is actually 2023 today, then the 30 AD, 2,000 years would be 2030. And that couldn't be the middle because it'd be, we would go over time. Can't go over time because the millennium has got to start. It's a Sabbath. It's got to start exactly the moment that it's supposed to start. There's no delaying it. And God will not be late for the Sabbath. I promise you that. So if the church age is 2,000 years, and that's not a stretch. I mean, I'm quite certain of that. I believe that the world is going to be 7,000 years to the second, not to the day, not to the week, to the second. I believe it started at 6 p.m. on Tishri 1. I believe at the end of the kingdom age, it's going to end on Tishri 1 at 6 p.m. And it'd be a perfect 7,000 year period, a giant sabbatical cycle. Van, you're exactly right. It never does. But here's the thing, and I don't have time to teach this to you. You can watch my videos on the barley harvest. The Jews are not doing it right. The Jews are using a computerized mechanical program to determine their calendar every year, and that's not biblical. In Bible days, the barley harvest determined what Passover every year. Passover is the first feast. That sets the precedent for all 7 of them. And they would add a leap year if the barley was not ripe. And that would happen about every 3 years. Because remember, there's only 354 days on their calendar. And that was true in Bible days too. So they're missing 11 days every year. So in about 3 years' time, they're a whole month off, right? So they would fix that. And they would know they were off because the barley's not ripe. You have to have barley to have Passover. No barley, no Abib. No Abib, no Passover. I write about that. So, are you still with me? They would look at the barley. If the barley was ripe, they would announce it's Abib. Passover would be in 2 weeks because this was done on the last day of the month of Adar. The next month is going to be Passover month, the month of Abib. A lot of people call it Nisan. But if the barley's not ripe, they add a leap month, a whole month. It'd be 13 months on the calendar that year. What does that do? That sets the whole calendar back a month. And that means Pentecost is going to be a month later than it would have been. Feast of Trumpets, Day of Atonement, Tabernacle, all pushed back a month, right? So you couldn't schedule in advance. You had to wait until you knew what the barley harvest was going to be. All right, this is important stuff. These are pieces of the puzzle God has given me over the years, and they're important pieces of the puzzle for understanding these timelines and God's prophetic calendar here. The barley. And by the way, the barley represents Israel. I proved this in my book and in my PowerPoint presentations. In the book of Judges, chapter 6, I believe. It could be chapter 7, I forget. Excuse excuse me, it's the story of Gideon. And remember Gideon? I can't go through the whole story with you, but the end of the story is the man in the tent hears the dream from the other guy, and the guy said, "In my dream, a cake of barley rolled down the hill and flattened my tent." Remember what the other Midianite said? He said, "That's none other than the sword of Gideon, and we're going to die tomorrow." What does that mean? That means that barley was understood by the Midianites to be a type of the nation of Israel. See, wheat is the church, the wheat harvest, Pentecost, that represents the church. Barley is a type of Israel. What's the lesson? When God sees that Israel is ready or ripe or Abib, as the Bible calls it, God will hit the reset button. 7 months from that day will be the rapture. In other words, in the spring, God hits that button. And we don't know if he hit that button or not. That's how you get a new moon in October or November instead of the Feast of Trumpets on the Jewish calendar. Okay? I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm saying that this is how I see it. And until God gives me something, a different way to look at this, I believe that what I'm telling you is sound. And I believe in Bible days, the priest determined Abib. But in the end times, God determines Abib. And it's not the barley in the field, it's the barley, the two-legged barley, the Jews, the 12 tribes. There's more to the story I could tell you, but that's not what my purpose is tonight. Get my barley harvest book or get my DVDs, my PowerPoint DVDs. I got 2 sets of them. There's a whole PowerPoint on the barley harvest that explains this. If you can find a video I've done, I've preached it in churches. I've done a thing called, what's it called? Something about the feeding of the 5,000 stuff. There's an amazing prophetic lesson in the feeding the 5,000 as well. All right, so that's it. That's the calendar. And does that mean he's not coming for 3 years? No, he could come tonight. By the way, that would mean if it's going to be a perfect 2,000-year church age, which I believe it is, if that's true, then the crucifixion would have to be on 33 AD and not 30 AD. Now, can we prove that? I'm not sure, but I did some looking, and I believe it is possible that 33 AD is possibly a Wednesday. But I got to go look again, and it's on my phone and I can't bring it up. I had let's see. All right, so I don't have that in my notes. I don't think here. I'm looking for it. I don't see it in my notes. I did write this down. Remember the year zero controversy? You know, they didn't have a year zero. It wasn't until 1582 they revised the calendar and added the year zero. That the fact that they didn't have the year zero means that they were a year 1 year ahead on their calculations because they didn't count a year. You see how that would make you be a year off? You'd be too far ahead. And they fixed that in 1582. Why is that important? Because depending on whose book you're reading to determine the full moons and the dates and Passovers in history, when you study this and you look up when was Passover in 33 AD, you got to find out if that guy's using the right calendar. The guy who came up with that, did he understand the year zero or not? See how important that is? You can be off a year there, depending on who you read after. Okay, so now you may be able to figure this out with the that Solarium computer program, but I don't know enough about it. I don't know if it's trustworthy or not. I think it probably is, and I think that will tell us the full moons all the way through history. But But I don't have that, and I'm not up on that. So if anybody's up on that and wants to help, let me know. I'll give you something to go look for. Um, but you need that Solarium program, or you have to know someone that has it, and then I mean, do we trust that? I don't know. So, in other words, if he died in 33 A.D., then the 2,000 year mark would be 2033, which is the date that I have here. That puts 2030 right at the dead center perfectly for the middle of the tribulation to be right there. Okay, I'm not saying that that's the truth. I'm not saying that that's 2030 is the middle. I'm saying it could be, and there's lots of reasons that make sense for it to be the middle, as I shared it earlier. All right, anybody confused? Anybody you give up? Melissa, what are you doing here? I thought you said it was too late for you. Um, I would not study anything in the Book of Enoch, not their calendars, none of that. I wouldn't pay any attention to that. But the answer is no. I know nothing about it. So, um, and again, I'm not saying we are off a year. It could be. That's why I said 1582 is when they corrected. By the way, it was under Pope Gregory. The Gregorian calendar was named after Pope Gregory. That's a red flag too, right? Can we trust our calendar? I always say no. Um, so, but if the calendar's off, 2030, whether it's really 2030 or not, is the date the globalists have all got together on. Isn't that interesting? And that worth paying attention to? Yeah, the Book of Enoch is filled with all kinds of errors, but I'm not sure if that's what she's talking about when she talks about the Enoch calendar. I don't know. It may be the Book of Enoch. I have no idea. But I would never suggest anybody read or pay any attention to the Book of Enoch that's out there. Let's see. So it's possible we got 3 years till the rapture. It's possible the rapture's in 2033, right? Or 2030. You never can be dogmatic about this. Never. Because you just can't count on the calendars. There's too many variables. What we do know is everything's pointing that everything is ready. We're in the time of the end. We know that. No question about that. Now, does that mean we got 2 weeks left, 2 months, 2 years, 10 years? I doubt that very highly, but could the calendar be off that much? That'd be tough. The Jewish calendar's off. The Jewish calendar is way off. It's a couple of 100 years off, and we've studied that, and we know why they messed with it on purpose. We believe to throw off the Christians. So I pay no attention to that one. So all right. So the important thing is to be ready all the time. Have your bags packed. Make sure you're saved. Make sure you're right with the Lord and ready for that trumpet to sound, because it could come at any moment, in the twinkling of an eye. Right? Now, Bible study wise, I think there's order here. I think he's coming on a new moon. I think it'll be a new moon in the fall. I think it most likely will not be the Feast of Trumpets on the Jewish calendar. And I think he's coming back on the white horse on Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement. See, these 7 feasts are not the Jews' feasts, they're God's feast days. They didn't make them up. It's not traditions. God come up with these. And these have a system. It's a tremendous study. It's the number 7, 7 days, 7 years, 7,000 years. Sabbatical cycles. And the whole world's going to be a giant sabbatical cycle. Very interesting stuff. And we're getting close. We know that. It could be that it's still coming this year. It could be that 2026 is that rapture date. It could be that he comes tonight, and we're all way off. See what I'm saying? Remember what I say all the time. Live like he could come tonight, but planned to be an old man. In closing, let me say this. We had our first week on pray.com. We're on Wednesdays at 8:30 Eastern Time. On the pray.com app, we're getting ready to send out letters to all of our supporters. If you have given money and donated, you'll get one of those letters. In that letter will be a QR code that you can scan with your phone. It will give you the premium app that costs $10 a month for free for a whole year. If you're interested, you may not want it. Most of you watch us on YouTube. You don't need to watch the pray.com app. We're after a huge new audience on there. So Wednesday nights, 8:30. This coming Wednesday night, I chose show number 161 that aired several weeks ago. I chose a different show to play on there because we're just getting started. And so what's playing on CTN, VTN, and YouTube will not be the same show that's on pray.com. Eventually, as we get going, we'll have them all together. But for right now, we want to air something different on pray.com. And so Wednesday night, 8:30 p.m. And also they're giving us a bonus spot for an entire year, and it's at Friday mornings at 8 o'clock Eastern time. No, 9 o'clock Eastern time, 8 o'clock Central time. And we had 15,000 people watching this past Friday. Now they didn't play us at 9; they played us at 11 because there was a glitch or something. So, but this Friday it'll be at the 9 o'clock Eastern time. But we had 15,000 people listening. So, I haven't heard from anybody. I can't point to one human being that watched, but the screen said there was 15,000 plus 10,000 on Wednesday. So we're gonna let this run a few weeks and see what happens. If we don't feel like it's doing anything, we won't continue. But by the way, I paid the CTN bill today. It's for December, so we're good on CTN all the way to the end of December. God bless you folks who said I want to be one of the 10, and you sent us $1,000. We actually have 15 of those, I believe, 15 or 16. What a blessing! Took the pressure off. And hey, we could still use some more. If you planned on giving and you haven't yet, get a hold of it. We'd love to get you in on that. Hey, it'd be great if we had 20, right? All right. Well, we have been long enough. I think we should get off of here. I'll get YouTube off here, and you may have to watch this again. You're probably not gonna. Some of you won't grasp all of this. That's okay. Don't worry about it. There's more to come. I've got more that goes with this, but and there'll be more coming in the future. Um, um, let's see. Okay, well, let me get off of here, and we'll see you next time. But until then, keep your eyes on them skies.